Welcome to another episode of The Breakdown. This is another kind of little bonusy episode today because we're not doing a live roundup and we're not talking about coal, but there is a couple of events coming up in the month of March that we wanted to make sure that we gave a little bit of attention to because we've given some attention to them in the past. So we're going to continue to do that. In order to do that, I'm going to welcome back to the show two folks that have been they've been vocal on the show before, and they have been vocal on Alberta politics. Very excited to welcome back to the program, Jenny. Oh, I so want to say Jeremy right now, but I'm not going to. Jenny, Jeremy, and Mark Toker. Thank you both for joining us again.
Thank you for having us.
So to start with, you're both with the AB Resistance still, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm going to get the plug in early. The website for the AB Resistance is what again?
abresistance.ca.
Thanks, Jenny.
I beat you to it, Mark.
That's okay.
I wanted to see who was gonna answer first, but I'll try to guide things a little bit better for the rest of the brief little program that we're gonna have today. So AB Resistance. Last time we had you on, it was different group of folks. There was a little bit more of the press conference from the bed, maybe a couch, who knows?
No, it
vibe.
Bad.
A little bit more of that going on. Today, though, we're here to talk about sort of the same thing that we were here to talk about last time, but we're talking about the next iteration of it. So last time that we had you on, Marg, Jenny wasn't here, but Marg was here, and we were talking about the efforts to recall MLAs, and there was a little session that y'all had, and it's now, from what I understand, it's time for step 2. So I'm going to ask Jenny some questions here. What is the main event that we're talking about here?
Okay, so this coming Sunday, March 23rd at 1:30 to 4 p.m., we will be, so a group of us from the Alberta Resistance will be at the Strathcona Community Hall. We'll be there to offer packages of literature with a map. And you can go for a walk, bring a friend, go for a walk, help us deliver this literature, which talks about the opportunity to recall MLA Nicolaides, the education minister, this Sunday and next.
Perfect. So that is, I want to nail the dates down. That is March 23rd. It's March still. I had to double check. And March 30th. This is in Calgary. This is for the constituency Calgary Bow. And I'm curious, Jenny, if you could talk for a sec, and then I'll ask you for your thoughts as well, Marg. Why start with Demetrius Nicolaides? Why is he the first metaphorical head on the chopping block, as it were?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I would say that for me, we got to start with our kids. If we're looking after our kids, then we're moving in the right direction. And, I have made steps to try and connect with my MLA, the Minister of Education last year, and was abruptly asked to leave his office. So, this is something to me that is extremely important. The erosion of public health, of public education, and the propping up of private businesses with our kids' school money doesn't make much sense to me. And it's something that we have to change quickly to help our kids know what to learn in the future and how to be successful.
All right, Marg, you got anything that you want to add
can't
to
top that. What I might say is that we were very fortunate that Jenny actually lived in Bow and had offered to be campaign captain, so that certainly was a plus for Bow. Not to take anything else away, definitely Demetrius was on the block.
Fair enough. Now, to be clear, this is not, because I remember you made a big point of this last time we had John Marg. This is not the initiation of the recall effort itself. Am I getting that right?
Okay, we are organizing. We are actively organizing right now to get to that day when Jenny files. So our biggest thing right now is getting information out and getting people to volunteer. We need those people. If we don't have the people, we don't have the recall.
Okay. And this isn't the only, to be clear, this isn't the only constituency that you're potentially looking at. This is just the first of, you're holding up 5 fingers or you're
5 more.
waving. I'm not sure. Okay. So there's 6 in total. Perfect. The event in Calgary is at again, Strathcona Hall this Sunday, the 23rd, next Sunday, the 30th. I love that it's between 1:30 and 4 p.m. for people to come and pick up their flyer bundles, because that way it doesn't conflict with our Sunday broadcast. So thank you for that. Very deliberate, I'm sure, consideration.
Of course.
100%. Yes. Your show, well, to be clear, we did have another event like this in Bowness. And thank you, Nate. Like, your listeners are the ones that came out. So we know this is the community. We know that these are the people that understand the need to do this work. So thank you very much for helping us get the word out again. And it's worked.
Course.
We have a lot of volunteers on the north half of the riding now. So now we're looking, that's why we're doing this in the south side of the riding, so we can make sure we get more volunteers on this side as well now too.
And I want to be clear for the record, because I know that there's going to be some folks that will be like, oh, I bet Nate's making mad bank for doing these little one-off AB resistance episodes. I'm not. You guys aren't paying me anything.
Not from us.
Sorry, no, thank you. I can take you for a coffee, Nate. Do you want to go for something like that?
I never say no to free caffeine, but I want to be very clear on that, because there are real concerns, I think, that exist when it comes to questions of objectivity and that sort of thing. And this is, to me, a very interesting political activity that's happening in the province of Alberta, particularly given some of the events that are maybe people are not so happy with the current provincial government. And don't worry, Marg, I know you got your notes, I know you got your list. I'm going to come to you in just a sec.
Okay.
But I want to ask you, Jenny, in particular, you've been somebody who's been active in provincial politics. You ran in the 2023 or 2020 something. There was an election. You ran in it for that. I don't, there's a party. Are they still around? I don't know. They are. The Alberta Party still a thing?
Yes.
Okay. Well, shocked expression. But I'm just kidding. Love you, Alberta Party. Just because you kicked me out, I'm a little bitter. But it was a long time ago. What are the big things that have sort of caused you to, for Jenny, what are the big things that have caused you to get fired up enough? Because, like, I'll say it, having run in a provincial election myself, it's exhausting. It certainly has the potential to be maybe a little bit discouraging. And I say that as somebody who got my ass kicked, so I can own that. What a lot of people get involved in politics, they get really, really fired up, and they do something grandiose like running an election. Now, it seems like after that, there's kind of 3 pathways for people after not winning an election. One of them is to just sort of fade into obscurity and find meaning in other elements of the life. Another is to apparently start a political podcast. And then the third seems to be to continue the political activism. You've very clearly chosen to continue the political activism. What is it that's keeping you fired up?
Well, we're moving in the wrong direction. And to me, it's not just about any political party. This is across all party boundaries. So to me, that's why getting involved within a resistance movement is really a no-brainer for me, because we all have to come together across party lines and start pushing back against embedded interests in our province. So, and like I said, I want to start in my riding. I've learned, if anything, from the election, that focusing where you live is really important. And in fact, in the advocacy work I'm doing, I'm learning more and more how land-based organizing is so important. So I really am just trying to focus on my community and do what's right by it, and hopefully demonstrate for others that this is necessary. Like Mark said, we all have to take responsibility and start getting involved in politics.
I got to ask the obvious question. If, let's say, the recall is successful, is Jenny running for the Alberta Party again?
I have no involvement with the Alberta Party whatsoever, just making that perfectly clear. I don't know it, like to your point, Nate, about getting, crushed in an election. I'm not doing this for the W's, like
Oh,
it's
we
nice
are.
to be, well, a W for everyone, not a W for me. And to your point about why this riding, there are a lot of ministers that are not behaving well. So if we can learn here and we can help others stand up other ones, knowing that the first one through often doesn't succeed. And that's why we're here to ask, like, if people want this to succeed, we need to see more support. We need to see people come up, step up, show us that this is something that's really important to them. And we do think we can be successful here. It's not easy. We basically have to stand up an election, to be clear. We need 40% of the people. We saw just over 60% vote. So this means we need more people than voted against the UCP to vote for this recall. So it's not insignificant. Keep going.
It is,
Mark.
but we are also taking it to them rather than waiting for them to come to us.
I had to ask the question because, again, for the same reason why I wanted to be very, very clear that, this is not a sponsored episode of The Breakdown or whatever. There will obviously be people knowing that you ran in 2023, 21, 23.
23, yeah.
It's all such a blur. Like the last 4 years have been nuts. There's people who are going to go, she's just doing this so she can run for the Alberta Party again. So I have to ask the question. Thank you for answering it. Marg.
Yes.
I know you've got a list. I know you've got some notes.
I do, but
I know you've got a theme.
And I do, but Jenny does as well, and I'd really like her to cover the reasons for having Demetrius Nicolaides at the top of the list, and she has her list. So
okay,
if she can cover some of that, we want people to know why. Why are you laughing at me, Nate?
Well, because you're hosting now.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I just think it would work better for us if you don't mind.
If you
Jenny
hosted
went first. Yeah. No, not. Okay.
Oh, so professional.
I'm just gonna sit quiet.
I'll start, Mark. You can fill in. How about that?
Okay.
Yes.
I'll just.
Now I'm.
Go. There.
Okay. Well, despite there being zero space projected in Alberta, the government started or continued the Alberta's Calling campaign that Kenny started. So we have been heading in the wrong direction in terms of bringing in more students and then giving less money proportionally to public schools. Teachers have been ignored for curriculum that they have put forward. It's been set aside, and instead we've had propaganda-filled education material going forward to our kids. We're taking, as I said, public money and building schools. This is the only province in Canada that is paying to build schools. 30-year leases. We don't see any benefit from this until, an entire lifetime or adult age individual.
Is that the P3? That's a P3 program, right? The 30-year thing?
Well, that's from what I understand, the charter schools, they basically lease the land and they get that,
I think
that lease for 30 years. Is that right?
Where that goes is, I think P3 is a program where the private schools pay dollar for dollar, and the UCP will give them dollar for dollar for building a school.
Right.
And then, or no, maybe that's not the. Go ahead, Jenny. This is a program though, the P3, where they're giving them dollar for dollar for private schools, and then the whoever has the private school will own it. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah. So, 38 schools that are basically this private public partnership where we're not actually building any schools in the public system. There's been one Catholic school that's been built in Calgary.
Yes.
And those, it's all about plans. I was listening to the legislature today and it was bragging about planning and organizing to do this, but not actually doing it. And, and we're still talking about infrastructure and not talking about the curriculum. Like, this is a really big problem for me, that we're not allowing our kids to have new textbooks and move forward with our peers. We're falling behind with our outcomes. That's the bottom line, right? Our kids are not, we're falling behind other provinces in our level of achievements.
Yes.
I'm curious, and when you talk about the schooling thing, one of the things that's fascinating to me is the program that the UCP rolled out, the accelerator program, where they will, similar to how they're now taking over ownership of the hospitals, they're now looking at building schools that the government will continue to own. And this is a really fraught situation for a lot of different reasons. But one of the biggest reasons, and we've talked about it on the show before, but one of the biggest reasons why I think it's particularly fraught is because overwhelmingly, when you take a look at who's starting private schools, by the numbers, not necessarily by the attendance, but by the numbers of all of the different schools, we're talking about religious institutions. And I want to be really, really clear. I don't have an issue with any given religion. And if somebody wants to school their kids inside of a religion, I don't have a huge issue with that. I have some questions about public dollars being directed towards that, and some concerns about that. But where I really have concerns is that if these schools are being built using public dollars and they're going to be owned by the government, then one of the other pieces that's going to happen is that the government is inevitably going to be ending up owning places of worship. And that's bonkers to me. And I again, I don't care what faith we're talking about, but when governments start owning religious spaces, that's really, really fraught, because it creates the opportunity for a lot of undue influence. That's a really nice chapel that you have there, Calgary Christian School. I really hope that's not a real school. If it is, I apologize in advance. But that's a really nice chapel you have there. We're having this UCP convention. We'd sure like to see a good representation from your school. Be a real shame if something happened to your chapel. I mean, it lends itself to that sort of thing. And the unfortunate reality is the way that we've seen this government leverage certain issues. I wish I could say that was outside of the realm of possibility, but I'm not sure that I can.
You can't. You can't.
Which is bonkers to me.
Yeah.
What else is on your list there, Jenny? You got anything else or?
Yeah, I forgot to mention the support staff. So we haven't been keeping up with, we've been cutting support staff rather than keeping up with the needs. And then the fact that we are disproportionately giving money to charter schools and private schools.
Charters.
Means that students, they can select the students that they take. So they have smaller class sizes, the select students, and what that leaves the public system with more students per class with more complexity. So we are making teachers' lives miserable. And then you couple that with the fact that we're not updating the curriculum. It means that we're not allowing kids to thrive in a way where everybody can be successful. We're still holding our kids to this, as Chantel Mogos likes to say, to this size 7 shoe, right? Where kids can't come through in a way that is successful for them, where there's more hands-on education, more environmental interaction, more, getting back to, learning how to cook and things like that in school, or things that are meaningful, learning how to clerk. There's programs in Norway that Chantel talks about where they walk kids through becoming a business in the classroom, and then they're also out in nature and interacting with nature on a regular basis. These are all things that would come forward with a new curriculum. And we're boring our kids with textbooks that are from the 2010s. It's just not right. I'll stop my rant now.
That's cool. No, and I think it's important that you bring the curriculum up. We had Dr. Carla Peck on a little while ago, and she did a very good job of highlighting the fact that the revised curriculum is less racist, but it does not fully acknowledge Canada's history, which I think is critically important, because, you know, I always go back to the those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it maxim, but it's true. And if we want our kids to do better, if we want our kids to move forward in the world, if we want them to have a better world than the one that we have currently, then we have to allow them the opportunity to learn from the mistakes that not only our generations have made, but previous generations as well. And I think that, you know, one of the things, history can be uncomfortable, and it's okay to be uncomfortable, because sometimes that's life. And if you go through an educational curriculum trying to, it blows my mind. I'm going to get a little bit off on a rant here, but it blows my mind that the same ideologues that talk about, oh, you're coddling the kids, and the oh, you're being parachute parents and all of that kind of stuff. It blows my mind that it's the same group of people that are like, whoa, we don't want to talk about like the actual stuff that happened, because that might be upsetting, and it's bonkers to me. That's all I have to say about that.
Yes.
I could not agree more. And I just want to add that that education benefits all of us. Like, this is the key to me, is it's not just, you know, learning from our mistakes. It's meaningful to how we move forward. Like I was saying, this land-based organizing, this is all, you know, I like to say they've been on the forefront of this problem for 400 years, right? So they are the direction in terms of understanding how to heal our environment and start moving us in the right direction in community too. It's all good stuff. Brings us together in community, helps us reconnect with each other and with our home. It's wonderful stuff to learn.
There we
Well,
go.
they do have an oil and gas course, so there's that.
Yeah. And you know, I do have to, if I can say that, Nate, you know, of course, I was in the industry and trying to advocate for cleanup of oil and gas sites and everything. And we're seeing stuff come out this week on it. I learned, you know, I thought it was just an industry problem, but then you realize that it's in our curriculum, and it is this cycle. Like when we talk about intergenerational trauma, I have to say this is a version of intergenerational trauma, that we are lying to our children about things that we should be knowing better from. And instead, our kids are being told Alberta has the most ethical oil in the world, when we have $260 billion worth of liability that needs to be cleaned up. And people like me were lied to in the industry. I was told it was only 60 billion, and we couldn't possibly know what the number is. You know, it is. And I was working that job. I was advising the government based on that number rather than the real number, you know? So it's all very angering. And then to be told that, you know, I'm not allowed to talk to my MLA about it, not welcome back in his office to talk about it, is just keeps layering it on, you know?
Well, and it's fascinating that you talk about the whole the meetings thing, because this seems to be a problem that's a little bit endemic to the UCP government. I saw a story just last week coming out of Northern Alberta, where there was a group of folks that had provided their names well in advance. They wanted to speak to an MLA up there, and that MLA was like 15 minutes before the meeting started. It was like, oh, there's this back door to the building I'm just going to make use of for a second here, and we'll reschedule, I promise. And that's not, I mean, here's the thing that I find so frustrating, is that they play to the audience that likes them. And that's not accountability. It's not transparency. If people are being respectful, if people are not like throwing F-bombs or being disrespectful or rude, I can't imagine any reasonable excuse for an MLA or any elected official to not take the time to chat with those people. And when they just go, oh, I don't like what you're going to say, so that's not the job. And if that's a job that you want to do, perhaps the private sector might be more appropriate. So yeah, it's bonkers to me. But I'm going to pivot on that angry note that you served up there, because I know Marg wants to talk about something that's tangentially, if not directly, related to that. And Marg, you had said in the little pre-interview that we did that you wanted to talk a little bit about apathy. So I want to give you the space to to do
I
that.
do, but I really need to throw in a couple of things about education before I do that, because they're
Okay.
big. Funding for charter schools has gone from, please listen to these numbers, 43.2 million in 2022 to 408 million in 2024, an 844% increase. That's where our money is going from public ed. They are also building 9 charter schools, building them. No province in Canada even funds charter schools, and now we are taking money from our public ed to be able to build schools. We are taking that money and putting it into charter schools, and we won't even know how much is going where, because they are now combining that, so it's all under education. Did it?
Did-
Nailed it. Try and cut this episode, Nate.
It just
You're gonna take that and splice it and move it back.
well, those numbers just have to kill you.
Well,
Yeah.
especially the charter piece to me is particularly bonkers because, again, I have no issue with if somebody wants to send their kid to a charter school. I don't have a problem with that.
Me neither.
But where I do start to like, and I can't remember which one of you it was. One of you said it very well earlier, but you highlighted, I think it was Jenny. You highlighted the fact that charter schools do have the ability to limit the students that they're going to take in. They do have the ability to pick and choose the students that they're going to take in. And this is, to me, it's again emblematic of that same problem that we run into every time we try to privatize areas that have historically been publicly delivered. You could say, okay, so they get to pick and choose the population and they get to cap who they want to receive. And oh, look, now we're talking about long-term care facilities, or oh, look, now we're talking about chartered surgical facilities. It's the same flaws repeated over and over and over again. And it works great for the privileged few, but for the people who maybe don't have that same degree of privilege, they're just screwed. And if that's the model that we're going to go with, I don't think that public dollars should be going towards it. That's just me, though.
No, that's me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. And they can also cap their classes.
Yeah.
They have no elected board. They appoint their board. Yeah, there's any number of things that are quite different from public ed, but our money is going more and more towards charter schools. And
I think it's, if I can just real quick, I want to hop on that elected thing, because anytime that we bring in the charter schools up, somebody's like, oh no, we elect our boards. And it's like, well, yes, but not from the general community. You elect them through if they're not appointed, if you do have the board elections, those are only voted on by people who are attending the charter school, which again goes to, okay, cool. So it's very insular.
Mm-hmm. And I had wanted to bring up too that there was a news article recently that talked about how many lobbyists and owners of charter schools are closely affiliated with the UCP. And this is like a theme that seems to run through every ministry with the UCP.
I just want to add, if I may, just the outcomes. I just want to highlight that they're not actually better for the privileged. I just want to make sure that that's clear. It's just like in healthcare, your example, private care for profit does not give better outcomes than public care. Mm-hmm. So it's the same in education. When you have one size fits all shoe model for your classroom, you don't get a real world representation of what you have to face in life. And so it's not helping the privileged to be in these isolated scenarios either. It's better for us all to be exposed to the realities of the world and where we and have that similar understanding for the way the world operates.
Yeah. Again, the irony of it will be endlessly entertaining to me in the most tragic of ways. Are you ready to talk about apathy, Mark?
I am.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. I think something that I've really found over the last year with ABR is we have 3,400 members now. But, and I sometimes assume that when someone joins us, it's because they believe in what we're doing and want to take part in that. And what we find is that maybe some people, I think, well, somebody else will do it. That person will do it, or that person will do it. But we need everybody to participate. That's been a very important thing that I've talked about since the beginning. My first email out was about participation. Nothing happens without participation. One of the reasons that I read that people are apathetic or can be apathetic is because they don't know issues. They don't have something to grab onto that maybe something hasn't affected them yet. But I'm here to tell you that it will affect you. All of these things will affect you. Healthcare, as Nate was talking about, on April 1st, the UCP will be transferring all of our hospitals, all of your hospitals, from AHS to infrastructure. I just want to read Daniel Smith's quote. This will allow us to choose the operator and to repurpose them to our own needs. What we're looking at is for profit. There's no other reason for doing this. So I wanted to get that in about healthcare. I think that's a very important point. We have the surgery clinics that are not increasing or working on our backlog the way that it was thought that they would. And the reason for that is that we've got empty ORs in public health care. There are not enough staff, enough anesthesiologists, etc., to have surgery clinics and also have our public health care going. So what we're doing is we're taking staff from public health care and putting them, and they're going to surgery clinics that are costing us more. Meanwhile, our ORs are empty. So that is, to me, that's just bonkers. I wanted to touch on oil and gas because this is another thing that affects people. Don't think it affects you. It's going to affect you if it's not affecting you now. Brian Jean says that oil and gas industry will need financial help from you. They need your money to clean up approximately 137,000 unreclaimed wells that oil and gas are legally responsible for. He also says that they need to lower municipal taxes for oil and gas. Right now they are $252 million in back taxes that they owe municipalities, and we need to give them a break. We are all, and I don't know how many people are aware of this, but we, through our government, through our taxes, we are already paying delinquent lease rents for oil and gas to rural landowners. Because oil and gas are not paying that, it's coming from the government. So we are paying them. That's another really, about 10% or 300, this is important, or 385 abandoned oil and gas wells in urban areas. That means, and I know Mark Doran was talking about the fact that there's some just on the edge of Edmonton, are leaking methane, in some cases at levels that can risk health, neurological damage, and explosions. That's happening right now. And that's according to the AER's own study. The AER, I want to touch on that. AER's own records show that 91% of spills were self-reported as cleaned up and were never inspected. But the oil and gas company wrote in or phoned in or emailed or whatever they do or sent a bird, I don't know, and said that they had cleaned up their spill. So it is recorded as cleaned up. Let's see, there is an spill in the AER database labeled 44.6 million liters. Internal records, however, have it at 4.5 billion liters. When we're talking about AER, we're talking about the organization that is supposed to protect Albertans. They are supposed to work for us. So, the things that are happening there are outrageous. They really are. Coal mining. Environmentalists and experts state that mining at Grassy Mountain will, not can or could, but will lead to the release of contaminants into the waterways that supply your water. We got to hit corruption.
Before we hit corruption, I want to jump in on the coal thing, because this is what we're spending the month of March on, and I think that it's critically important, because there's some pieces with the coal thing that are, if you want to talk about things that are going to make you angry, there's a couple of things that I can point to with the coal mining that should serve that purpose very, very easily. The first one being, you talked about the AER. You talked about how the AER is supposed to work for Albertans. It's supposed to be the arm's length organization. Brian Jean has demonstrated on multiple occasions already. He's more than happy to reach into that organization and either give them a nudge or push directly in regards to what he believes that policy should be. And when we talk about Grassy Mountain, that's demonstrated. He wrote a letter to the AAR saying that in his interpretation as minister and presumably a lawyer still, I don't know, that they should be considered as advanced projects and exempt from the rules. And then they just got rid of the rules that would have made exemptions in the first place. And then they said there's going to be these new coal mining policies that they haven't released, they haven't been transparent on. But even then, at the press conference where they announced these new amazing environmentally friendly coal policies that they didn't have yet, they said that Grassy Mountain was still going to be exempt. So the research is very, very clear. The experts have been very, very clear. We're talking about coal dust blowing off the mountain. We're talking about selenium leaching into the water supply. And when we're talking about the selenium leaching into the water supply, it's the water supply for pretty much all of southern Alberta. And that includes all of the agri-food stuff. So this one mine has the potential to screw the entire southern half of the province. And that's not hyperbole. That's demonstrable. And why it is that this government would want to inflict that risk or that certainty on Albertans, especially Southern Albertans, is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And one of the things that I learned over the course of our coal exploration was that there's a lot of people who don't realize just how barren Southern Alberta used to be. I mean, I've talked about it before on the show. I'll bring it up again. When I first started working in my profession, I worked in Southern Alberta, and it blew my mind to find out how much of the irrigation that exists in Southern Alberta was actually brought in by members of a certain faith group because they needed that land to do something for them because they had nowhere else to go. So it's not that Southern Alberta will be fine. It's that infrastructure is built off of certain water supplies. And if you screw with the top of the water supply, you've screwed Southern Alberta. And I just want to add one more thing just to put the absolute cherry on top, and then I'll give you the mic back, Mark. I promise. Okay. There's a creek that literally runs down the side of Grassy Mountain. and it's Blairmore Creek, and it literally feeds into the entire Old Man water system. Like, it's a direct line. This isn't, oh, well, if the wind blows a certain way and a unicorn farts in the right direction, that all of a sudden we're going to have these problems. There's literally a creek that feeds off of the mountain that they're wanting to do all of this in, that feeds into the entire water supply. That's just the reality. And the fact that there are organizations like Northback that are willing to engage in what some have characterized as manipulation of the populations in the area should be something that is enraging to everybody, particularly, I swear to God, I'm almost done, particularly when we talk about the fact we had Adam North Pagan on the show.
Yeah.
And he talked about the way that, the stories that he's hearing about how Northback is manipulating the Piikani Nation. I go back to what we were talking about with the curriculum. Those that fail to learn from history are bound to repeat it. And the fact that there's a corporation that's willing to, and a government that's willing to enable it, that's willing to put this entire nation at risk, and all of southern Alberta. And when I say nation, I'm talking about the Piikani Nation, just to be clear. But there's others down there too. That's willing to put that entire space at risk. Like, we need to stop doing that.
Hard pass. Said how many times? 4 or 5 for the past 4 or 5 years? 80%
of Albertans.
Stronger. I saw you had Fitch on.
What did they do? They turned around and they opened up the coal mining everywhere.
Yes.
So
in the middle of a hearing where we are hearing from experts repeatedly, and the coal companies, to be clear, Nate, the coal companies said in that hearing and in the Atrium legal pursuit, like their lawsuit that they're trying to come after us, they say, doesn't matter what policy that Jean puts out, because guess what? We can't do it. They've really written that in their submission, that doesn't matter if they come up with this closed pit mine, whatever magical unicorn thing that Jean is proposing. We can't do it. We need open pit mining. They've said.
Well, and I don't care what Jean says about, like, I heard his whole little spiel that he tried to do with Rebecca Schultz when they were like, oh, we've got this new mining technology. I don't care, because you said Grassy Mountain was exempt. So you're still talking, like, you're still looking at going ahead with the mine that's going to screw the entire southern half of the province. And until you put a plug in that, I don't care what you have to say, because you can have all of the greatest technology that you want 20 years down the road. And I'm not a coal mining expert. It might be entirely possible to do this without any bad things, but we know that using the existing methods, the bad things happen. Lauren Fitch, who was on the show, talked about the fact that he's been following this stuff for 50 years, and there has been not one coal mine that hasn't had some sort of catastrophe. So I don't know what more Albertans need to get angry about, and that's just the coal mining stuff. That's not all the other stuff.
Right.
Well, and as Mark said, that's because we're avoiding, you ask why? Because we're not talking about this $260 billion oil and gas crisis that's coming to us. We have tariffs coming our way right now, and the potential for a ton of bankruptcies. And instead, they want to talk about coal. I think there's something to be said about that. Why aren't we focused? The AER needs to be focused on this onslaught that's about to arrive, if it isn't already, right? Instead, they're focused on coal hearings. Doesn't make any sense.
But to Mark's point, and this is where I'm going to give the mic back to you, Mark. To Mark's point, the AR is only going to be focused on things if people are telling them, "Hey, would you please do your job?" And that goes to the apathy piece. And I think that's, I don't mean to put any words in your mouth at all, Mark, but I think that's part of what you're talking about with the apathy and the people not realizing this is going to like, think about the summer where Calgary had our water supply screwed up for like a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Now do that for the entire southern half of the province. And if you're in Edmonton, you think you're going to be okay. There's going to be some costs that are associated with all of southern Alberta no longer having potable water.
It'll affect us all.
Well, and interbasin transfers, they're talking about taking water south. You know, so you wouldn't be, it would
There
be
you
a
go.
domino effect. It's 100% has to be, this needs to be thought of as an Alberta problem, not just an Alberta problem, a provincial, across the country, interprovincial problem.
Mark, I want to give you the mic back so you can continue your list.
I wanted to, you brought up Rebecca Schulz, so I just can't pass that by. Rebecca Schulz, as environment minister, was lobbied, I just have to get this out there, was lobbied by a lobbyist on behalf of oil and gas for 2 pilot projects worth $2 million. Those pilot projects involved cleaning up unreclaimed wells. Different projects, but both for the same thing. The lobbyist that she granted that to was her husband, Cole Schulz. When Danielle Smith was asked about that, she stated that there was no conflict of interest. I just had to get that story out. That one burns me every time I see it.
100%.
Yeah, then I'm on to, I want to talk just very, very briefly about corruption. I'm not going to get into it because knowing me, I'll say something that'll get Nate in trouble. So I'm just going to really summarize. I urge everyone to read the complete statement of Athana Mentolopoulos and consider if indeed there is this level of corruption in AHS, do you really believe that it would be confined to AHS? And that's all I'm saying on that.
Well, I appreciate you trying to keep me out of a little bit of trouble. I will say
I would have.
I will say this because, and speaking only for myself, not for any organizations that I may or may not be affiliated with, boilerplate disclaimer. I found it fascinating reading Athana's statement and then reading the government's rebuttal.
Yes.
And what I found particularly fascinating, I mean, the tone and tenor of the government's rebuttal, I've seen 6-year-olds who have more articulate temper tantrums. But what I found particularly fascinating, it wasn't what they said that struck me the most. It was what they didn't say. And as somebody who was named in Athana's statement as allegedly being a target of the premier's office, I haven't had the chance to address this publicly in any capacity yet because there was some things. But I found out about that on the day that the statement was released. I found on the day that the Athana statement was released to the public was when I found out that allegedly the premier's office tried to have me fired from my job, which is bonkers on so many levels. Like on so many levels. I could do like 45 minutes on that alone.
Yep.
But
allegedly, I believe it.
Well, I mean, they don't deny that in the government's rebuttal. They don't deny any of, and it wasn't just me. There were, I think, 4 or 5 other people that were targeted allegedly by the premier's office to be fired for having, God forbid, political views on their spare time. None of that is denied in the government's statement of defense. And so there are little things that you can look at in Athana's statement and go, oh, the government is not denying that part. Fascinating. So that's, it's going to be a fascinating court case to watch play out. I look forward to seeing who has receipts and who doesn't, because I have a vested interest in a lot of different ways. But that to me was very, very telling, that they just didn't address certain things. So
can I just add that Athana is, if you're listening, I love you. Thank you for doing what you did. Like, we need in Athana, the environment, like Department of the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Energy. We need one in health,
education.
We need them, we need more and more people like Athana to speak out. So thank you. And I know she didn't do it because, I mean, she tried to go the right route first, right? She tried to, my interpretation. She tried to do it the right way, tried to do an investigation through the right channels, and was told, no, thank you, go away. So thank you for fighting back. That's all I'll say about that.
Allegedly. I have gotten so good at using that word
Allegedly.
for everything, because if I don't, my lawyers will kill me. So yeah, no, it's and there are, like, here's the thing. There are things that are demonstrable. There are things that are facts, and that is unquestionable. And I go back to the Nate Horner situation. I can say without any hyperbole, without any exaggeration, that Nate Horner, the finance minister, was being lobbied by his cousin on behalf of somebody that he had accepted gifts from. And I don't know what kind of bizarre definition of kickback Danielle Smith is choosing to use when she says no one in her government has ever accepted kickbacks, but it's not necessarily brown paper bags of money. If you accept something from somebody in return for a thing, or there's even a perception of that, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get out in front at the very beginning of the show. I'm not getting anything for doing this episode other than an episode. So whatever. That's called ethics. And I would make the argument to this government and to any Albertans that are at this point not yet enraged by the state of our province. Ethics is what you do when people aren't watching. It's what you do when they're not looking. And they posed for pictures doing these things. So if this is the stuff that they're willing to do in the open because they're either too stupid or they don't believe that there will be consequences for their actions, I shudder to think at what they're doing when people aren't looking.
That we can't see.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. Anything else on your list, Mark? Anything else you want to hit on? Because I
Yes,
said we were going to do a half hour.
okay.
We're coming up to an hour here.
I'm trying hard here. Okay, I want to speak. I really do want to speak to apathy. And I just want to talk about the fact that, I started ABR a year ago. I had zero advocacy experience. I just knew that Alberta was not going in a way that I wanted to see for my children, for my grandchildren. And full disclosure, I've been a conservative all my life. I just hadn't been paying attention for a lot of years. When I did pay attention, it was shocking to me that this party was not conservative. They're not conservative. I don't know what they are, but they're not conservative. I want to talk about the fact that we have a board of 10 members. We have people that have worked day in and day out for Alberta, for Albertans. We have a retired teacher who came back, actually retired a year early in order to come and help us. We have a strategic planner who works, has a full-time job, and has a commitment to a very ill family member. And she gets up at 4 a.m. every morning and puts in 3 hours for us. We have cybersecurity, we have financial planner, we have graphic artist, we have a whole group of people that everybody jumps in and helps with whatever task, whether it's organizing town halls, whatever we're doing, everybody helps. And we've been doing this for a year. And I have stated over and over again that to get anywhere with this, we have to have participation. So now I am asking you, everyone out there, everyone that that is in our membership, that is out there listening, we need a few hours from you. The other thing that I want to talk about quickly is groups. There are so many great groups out there advocating for things that they believe in that affect them. I would just like to ask a question to each of you. Maybe just have you think about the fact that after all your emails, your phone calls, your rallies, whatever else you're doing on behalf of your cause, have you ever gotten once any concession from this government? I just want you to think about that, because what we really need to do is come together. That's where we take back our power. We can't sit quietly in our little echo chambers and each doing our own thing. It's not going to work. But together we take back our power. And I really want groups to think about that. And I guess I just want to say to people that we aren't doing this because we have the extra time, because we have nothing else to do. We're doing it for a reason. Take a good look at every aspect of this government, every aspect. You can, there's things there that boggle your mind. Please think about that and think about donating a few hours. And that's what I'd really like to say.
I'm going to reiterate the dates and the times. I think I will say before I do the shameless plugs on your behalf, I think the dog's in. I think you got the dog. I'm not sure. I feel like you did. Either that or he's very excited about what's going into the microwave. I don't know. The events that we're talking about are this Sunday, the 23rd. This is Strathcona Hall. People can go and pick up flyers. They can go and pick up the maps for the flyer areas. They can go get their steps in. They will also have the opportunity to do that again. Or if they can't make the 23rd work, then they can also do the 30th. And that's what the big ask is, for people to go out to pick up a boatload of flyers and to get their steps in and deliver them. Once again, the website is
abresistance.ca.
There we go.
And
okay.
I do want to say one quick thing, Nate. There is a QR code on these flyers, which we want people to indicate whether they're willing to sign a petition. So if you, we'll direct you from here, but these QR codes are meant to get people to tell us that you are willing to sign a petition to recall Nicolaides. So that's what we're after ultimately. Thank you.
There we go. Now, I think I also want to highlight really quickly, because we haven't touched on it here. As much as I'm sure that there are people across the province who would love to be a part of the petition to have Minister Nicolaides removed or recalled, you have to be a constituent of Calgary Bow. So for those who are super well intentioned and super excited, if you don't live there, don't do it. You'll just screw it up. But you can go do the flyer drop. You can go do the support work. You can do all of that stuff. Did I get that right, Mark?
You got that right.
Perfect. Anything else either of you want to say real quick before we wrap it up with double the time?
I just want to say welcome back. Glad you're back.
There you go. And thank you. Thank you for doing this for us. It, as I said, as Jenny mentioned, it helps. It helped last time, and so we appreciate the time you give us, Nate. And no, you're not paid.
No, really not. Like really not.
Really not.
But I wouldn't want to be, and I want to be. That's one of the pieces that I think is really important. And I'll use this episode as an opportunity to highlight it. The breakdown is entirely funded by our audience. We're entirely funded by people who send e-transfers. They sign up for the Patreon stuff. I hear there might be a GoFundMe. That's entirely how we get our support. We don't take corporate donors. We don't take organizational donors. We don't do any of those things. It's on a person by person basis. And the reason for that is it's critically important to me that we can go and have conversations with whoever we want. And if that means that we upset some folks, I don't care. And I'm I'm free to do as I wish. So that's why I wanted to make it clear right out of the gates. I will do the quick little plug. The abresistance.ca website. You should go visit that, check out some things. But also, if you value the kind of content that we've produced here at The Breakdown, we'd love nothing more than if you did sign up to be one of our Patreon sponsors at www.patreon.com/TheBreakdownAB. That's the plug I'll do for today. Thank you both so much for spending a little bit of time. And I look forward to hearing how the Sundays went.
Thank you. Thanks, Nate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Nate. Really.